Brian Harmon, the Craft Emporium, the go-ahead to start selling drinks to the public. Joined tonight by BHS baseball coach Russ Hogue. Coach Hogue coming right off of practice. Want to make sure that before we get started, I do want to say Top of Ohio Radon. We want to thank our sponsor, Paul Newland of Top of Ohio Radon. He is the guy you need to call if you want to get your radon levels checked here in Logan County. We uniquely have issues in our soil with radon. He'll come out, give him a call at 937-935-2806, and Paul Newland will come out, check your levels. If you have issues, he'll get that fixed for you pretty easily, and if you don't, he'll give you the peace of mind to know that you're good to go. Coach Hogue, have you checked your radon?
I have never checked my radon ever.
So I think we've already found one of our first customers that I've heard that Jackson Center, that's where you live, right?
Yeah.
I've heard that Jackson Center has a little bit of a radon issue. I don't want to alarm
What
you.
is radon?
Radon's it's the second leading cause of lung cancer. It's a gas. That's about all my knowledge of radon is that it is a gas and it's the second leading cause of lung cancer.
Well, I might want to get that checked then.
So he'll come in, dig you a little hole, and if you have dangerous radon, get you fixed in time for opening day. So you're coming off the not the field. We'd like to say field.
Yeah, the gym floor.
How? So this was the first week.
Second week.
Second week. So we're day
10. Practice 10.
Practice 10. Have not been outside yet.
No.
How has gym baseball been through 10 days?
Well, overall, kids have been great, but baseball inside is kind of, it's redundant. It's hard for the kids to kind of stay locked in. And year to year, you go through it. But to be honest, the kids this year have been pretty receptive to doing the kind of redundant type of drills that we have to do for baseball season, like bunt coverages, all the things that go into, having a good defensive team.
Do you use both gyms?
Yeah, so the Aux gym, we primarily just hit in. Then the main gym, we'll do team defense. But like today, Jim Barrett came in as our umpire, set up the mound, had bases, and then we just rotated guys in and out. And we just kind of had like a fake live-ish game in the main gym.
Forecast looks good. Looks like we got a couple more days of inside baseball, probably tomorrow and probably Saturday.
Yeah.
Next week
we're hoping to be out. Hopefully Tuesday, because I think Monday we need the wind to blow, just because the field's got puddles on it right now. So.
Now, I know we've talked about this before. Once you go outside, you really want to stay outside.
You do not want to go back inside.
And you had a day there last week where you probably could have snuck out for a day or so.
But then it ruins it.
You felt like going out and the kids get a taste of it and they don't want to go back. So let's talk logistics. How many kids do we have out for baseball?
We have 28. So we'll have roughly, I would say I'd like to carry anywhere from 12 to 14 with varsity. Then, of course, the rest would then go to JV. Just depends on pitching, to be honest, or vice versa, how we plan on pitching a certain game.
There was a time, an era, and not just at Bell Fountain, but a lot of places where freshman baseball was a common thing. Do we feel like, we don't have to dig too far into this, I know you want to talk about it later, that's a thing of the past for the most part, to have 3 teams?
To be honest, it all dictates on the individual school. But, I just know currently West Liberty will not have enough for a JV. Indian Lake.
West Liberty won't have enough for a JV.
Correct.
Okay.
So but also you'll have years where a West Liberty will have 3 teams. So it's like a roller coaster, to be honest. So it's kind of hard to plan, logistically, us the past 2 years, we've had 2 JVs. We've had JV-A and JV-B. And then this year we'll just have 1 JV. So I just think it depends on.
What about in the CBC, like schools like us? Is Alder carrying 3 teams?
No, Alder only carries
Alder
2.
doesn't have 3
They only
teams.
do any cuts. So they only do 2 teams.
Maybe
London,
by choice then.
Correct.
Gotcha. So maybe some people feel like a sport like baseball, that third team's maybe not
Who are you going to get out of that third team?
right. And I know it sounds kind of tough, but the reality is if you're on that third team, your chances of helping in a skill sport like baseball are a longer shot. Well, let's dig in. You're going into your 5th season. Last year, 14-11. Had a solid year. Won a game in the tournament. Beat Bishop Fenwick, I want to say. and then lost to Kenton Ridge in round 2.
Yep.
Was that a good Kenton Ridge team?
Yeah, they had I think 7 seniors, and then they had the 3 headed horsemen that have basically been our Achilles heel from when they were freshmen to now. So, like the Logan Fife kid, he's starting day 1 at Missouri State. So like he was a kid that was just dominant.
Now, this is a stupid question, but Tom Randall is not the coach anymore at Kenton Ridge.
No, Aaron Schaefer is. He's got, I want to say almost. I think he got his 300th win.
Oh, so he's been there a long time. So it's been a long time since Tom Randall was the coach. Okay, I'm a little out of date. Tom Randall would have been the guy in certainly the 80s, definitely 90s and 2000s.
To be honest, I think that's who Schaefer replaced.
Okay.
Once Randall stepped down.
Long history at Kenton Ridge of good baseball. Probably the preeminent team as far as guys in the pros, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 dudes played Major League Baseball out of KR?
I want to believe that they have at least in our conference. I want to say it's us and KR that's got the most guys drafted in our conference.
Well, we're going to talk about ours here in a minute. So, last year, decent year. Had some dudes not come out, and we don't need to necessarily go too deep into that, but you lost a lot. You lost a lot of seniors and lost some production, and then you lost another 2 or 3, 4 guys that had played last year that could have played that for various reasons aren't out. So, as I looked at the CBC website, I see primarily 5 guys that were, meaningful parts of your varsity season last year that are returning. Is that lower than you're used to have 5 dudes back?
And to be honest, it's a good thing and also a bad thing. So, like, the good thing is now, like, this season, I can be super flexible with, like, my lineups, right? You can move kids around because we're all young, so it's like,
A blank slate.
Exactly, And so it's easier that way to be able to move kids around and, strategy-wise. And then once you get later in the year, then you kind of get set in a tournament. Now, the bad thing is you got to play around with the lineup and find the mojo leading into the tournament, because that's all that matters.
I want to talk about some of your returners. So, it starts with second-team All-CBC Jose Sandoval, batted .367, only a sophomore. That's got to be somewhat rare, I would guess, to have a second-team All-League freshman. He's your shortstop. I mean, he's kind of the dude. Is that safe to say?
And to be honest, Jose, I believe, was first-team All-District last year. And the reason why he was second-team for us in the conference is because Jonathan Aller, shortstop, Ashton Martin, who went to Ohio State, hit, I think, 540.
Yeah.
So he ain't going to get first team behind him.
So, and honestly, I'm sometimes I ask these questions just for the purpose of the show, but because I'm not as familiar with baseball, tell me a little bit about him.
So with Jose's unique skill set is the fact that he can switch hit. So he can hit right-handed, and then he can hit left-handed.
Yeah.
So with any high school age kid, to be able to do that is rare, and he can do it well. And vice versa.
So he's not as vulnerable to the lefties.
Correct. And then vice versa, the thing that he does the best at is if he gets down the counts, like if it's 1-2, 0-2, some kids will, struggle, maybe strike out. He has the ability to, stick it out there and hit a little duck fart over the second baseman's head and get a hit.
He is a move-in, is that correct?
Yep, he moved
maybe
here.
A year or so?
Last year he moved in. Him and his family moved here last year. And then...
where's he coming from?
So he's coming from Caracas, Venezuela.
Do you know much about his baseball experience there?
Yeah, so basically his backstory is his family both worked at a university in Venezuela, and they value education. That's their thing. They want Jose to get a quality education. Well, in Venezuela, he was sent to a baseball academy, and the family assumed at the baseball academy he was going to be learning English and doing the types of things that they wanted to do educationally, and also getting baseball experience, because this academy that he was at produced high-level Major League Baseball players. So they assumed that's what was going on.
They assumed it was a school as well.
Correct. Well, Dad went to this academy and realized there was not a lot of schooling going on, but there was a ton of baseball being taught. And so them as a family were like, hey, we value education. We're going to go to the United States so then Jose can not only get an education, but then live kind of like the American dream kind of thing.
Well, that's pretty fortunate for us because obviously taking him out of the lineup would not be something you would enjoy. Looking down the list here, Beckham Harmon is a junior, batted .306 for you last year. Played catcher, was listed as a DH. I don't know how much he DH. What can you tell us about Beckham?
So Beckham last year actually started with the junior varsity team to catch, just because Owen Larison was ahead of him and went to hockey, and so like Beckham really didn't have a place on the field per se, just because Owen was just more mature behind the plate just physically than Beckham. And Beckham came to us on a doubleheader when we played St. Henry and Defiance Tenora. And so we wanted to give Owen kind of some days off because doubleheaders for catchers is kind of difficult. And Beckham came in there and basically won us both games. He went off. I mean, at the plate he was hitting it well. So then for me, I'm like, okay, he can handle varsity pitching. So we had another player that was struggling. So I'm like, hey, I'd rather have Beckham stay with us, just DH for him, and we'll see what he can do. And he hung around, and he hit really well. So now this year, Beckham would be our starting catcher, and now he can play every day and not have to worry about, am I going to play today or am I not going to play today?
Now we'll get into the lineup a little bit, but do you have another catcher? I mean, I know catcher's one spot where you need a second guy.
To be honest, we have behind him we'll have Avon Caudill, who's a freshman, and then we have Hayden Allison, which would be behind Avon. Like they're interchangeable, but
you feel okay though.
At the catcher position, we're good.
In the outfield, you return Brody Boy, batted .196. He's a senior. Brody's played a lot of varsity athletics, been a starter in football for 3 seasons. I feel like varsity baseball for maybe this would be like his 3rd season, I would guess.
Third full season, yeah.
What do you expect out of Brody?
Now with Brody, sometimes he gets in a funk, which happens in baseball. If you get in a slump and you start chasing things, I almost feel bad for like guys that are capable. Yet you hit a hard line drive and the guy catches it. It's like, dang, you had a good hit, but it doesn't show up in the stats. And with Brody, I can think of 5 or 6 times when hits that should have been hits were caught. So then you're like, and a lot of the coaches were on the fence about giving Brody honorable mention as an outfielder last year all conference, just because he got on base a lot. He would get hit by pitches. He would walk. So there's those types of things too that people don't see. They just see the average of 196 and go, "Ooh, that's tough."
Well, I can speak for Brody. I moved him to the offensive line his junior year, and he stayed there last year as I didn't coach. But when I asked for Brody, it was because I trusted him, and he knows that. If you had ever listened to this, Brody has intangibles. He has character. He has grit. He, actually for me, he kept an even keel as the center. First of all, he was 170 pounds, so he was massively outweighed. But he did his job, and he did it quietly, and I trusted him at the end of the day. So I have no doubt, even without seeing a whole lot, that Brody's the kind of dude that you can kind of build around he's going to be there every day. He's not going to check out. He's not going to take a vacation on you. He's not going to be hurt. He's going to be there every single day and do what you ask for him. Then you got a couple pitchers back, and I know some of those guys maybe pitched a little bit, but these next 2 guys kind of were exclusively pitchers. You've got another senior, one of your few seniors, Alex Crable, pitched 30 innings for you last year, 4.9 ERA. Is he the number one? Is he opening day?
Well, to be honest, he'll be up between Alex and then Luke Levan. So, getting Luke back will be good for our program. And I would say with Alex, he is very effective getting guys out because he can pitch around the zone. So, to be honest, it'll be up to those 2. And the good news is our opening day is a doubleheader. So, opening day starter could be both of them.
Right. So now Alex played baseball all 4 years. He's jumped around. He's played about as many sports as anybody I can recall. I think he's maybe now got a varsity letter in every sport we offer.
I think he may break a Fountain High School record for most sports played, and it's impressive.
Yeah, I think he's probably already broken it. Yeah. And then also you got a young pitcher, sophomore Spencer Stolley, through 25 innings for you. What jumped out to me is a 2.45 ERA. It's a pretty good opening year, freshman year for a young pitcher.
Correct. And with Spencer, it was almost like, hey, we're just going to throw you out there to the Wolves and want to see how you do. And to be honest, with Spencer, he's a left-handed pitcher, which is rare in our conference. You don't see very many lefties. So and I think a lot of the times when he throws strikes, dare him to hit it, and our defense behind him made plays. So.
Spencer is a guy that I didn't coach a bunch in football just because he was a freshman when I coached and didn't coach his position. But this past year, watching him and calling the games, Spencer was one of my favorite players because he just has that knack. Like, that if he's given an opportunity, he's going to do something with it. He's just that gym. I think I called him on air a gym rat, and I just mean like he's that dude that he's been in so many situations in athletics that it's not going to freak him out. And he's got plenty of talent. He's not the biggest dude, but he is growing. He's no longer, a little dude like he once was maybe. I think he's going to have a huge next 2 years in football in particular. So it doesn't surprise me if he would really pop in baseball as well. So is there anyone I'm missing there returning-wise? That was just kind of the sweep of the stats.
Now, the thing, like, stats-wise, there's guys that, of course, don't. Like, you go to CBC Sports Online, and you're like, okay, these guys, heavy returners. But then there's guys that were sitting on the bench that were around us. They maybe got spot appearances, but then also got that kind of experience. And, like, when I think of that as, like, Sutton Daring, like, he may not have gotten AB, but he came in defensively for us. So, like, what I'm saying, like, in a high-pressure situation, he subbed in and had to go play second or had to go play third. So, like, those kind of things is a good thing for this year. So now he's ready. Like, he knows.
Is he playing second base, you think?
To be honest, it'll depend on who's pitching. You know what I'm saying? That's a good thing with our crew is we got, I would say, 15 or 16-ish varsity possible letter winners this year just because on who will throw.
Jose's the shortstop, though.
Jose would be the shortstop for sure.
And when he pitches.
And then when he pitches, that's when it's like, okay, well,
right.
Sutton may have to move to short, Alex Crable will have to move to first. So that's when it's like a puzzle piece. And then we just hope, like, okay, we practiced enough that these guys are ready.
You mentioned first base. Who are the candidates at first?
So I would say, depending on pitchers, number one would probably be Alex Crable, depending on who's on the mound. Behind him would probably be...
And when you say depending on, obviously when he's on the mound, it's not him.
Correct.
But it does also affect someone else.
Yeah, so like for example, then Brody Boy could move from the outfield to first base. Or Lincoln Bana, like if he starts, like with me, I'm always nervous with freshmen just because I don't know how they're going to hit, because it's a big jump from travel baseball or rec baseball to then seeing an 86, 87 mile per hour fastball, or vice versa defensively. They're going to have some hard ground balls that you're going to have bunt. I always get nervous when it comes, and it's not uncommon, but at the same time, where we're at in the program, it's like, you know what? I'd rather him just get experience. Screw it. We'll just throw him out there and see what happens.
So you got Crable. You might play Boyd there a little bit.
Boyd,
you said Lincoln Bana. So this is a freshman or
Yeah,
sophomore?
freshman.
Freshman Lincoln Bana comes in with a decent amount of talent. Pretty big kid. Probably what, 5'11", 6 foot, maybe
Like
even.
he could probably throw, like pitch for us varsity wise too. So that's the only thing that kind of stinks with baseball is there's just so many. We have so many guys that have potential to play certain positions, but then it's like you got those four just at first base. So it's like, okay, now we're gonna go second base. Then you gotta like.
Well, let's go to second base. You got Sutton Daring.
You got Sutton. You got Zeiler. You got Caleb.
Zeiler
Overman.
Huffman.
Zeiler Huffman. You got Caleb Overman.
Caleb Overman's a returning senior.
No, junior.
Junior. And
then vice versa, you can move Crable to second base. You can move Kyle Boop, who's a sophomore. So that's where it gets challenging because then it's like, okay, if I start Kyle Boop at second, I could put Sutton Daring at third. There's a lot of
Yeah.
Is
that typical that you'd play that many different dudes, that many different spots?
Early on, yeah. And that's
Especially when
where,
you're
and
young.
that's especially when you're young, and that's where it kind of stinks because it's hard to. When I tell the guys, it's like, hey, we're treating the first half of the season almost. It's all. I hate to tell them like it's scrimmages because it's not. We want to win, But at the same time, I want to win in the tournament. I want to be in a championship game. If we lose in the championship, hey, so be it. But we made the championship
You want to
game.
figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And if that isn't making you your best team, you're willing to accept that.
Correct.
For the long-term gains. Shortstop, when Sandoval is on the mound, you mentioned Sutton Daring. Who else do you feel comfortable at short?
To be honest, it could be another freshman. I could pull up Sam Fine.
Okay, I'm not familiar with
So
him.
Sam, again, he started coming to a lot of our fall, winter workouts as a sixth grader. So he's been around. Fundamentally, defensively, he's ready. Now, offensively, he's not there yet, just because again he's a freshman. He ain't used to the.
What else does he play?
So he can play second.
No, I mean, what other sports?
That's it.
That's it. He's a baseball guy.
Yeah. So he
Travel guy?
travel guy.
Okay.
So he kind of eats, sleeps, drinks baseball. So
Well, you like that. I mean, you like both. I mean,
Yeah.
you probably have some guys that are three-sport guys, but then it's not bad to have a couple guys that focus
exactly,
on
I
their
like
sport.
guys that just like to compete in anything, chess, checkers, whatever.
Third base, we haven't talked about at all.
Third base could be it could be Luke Levan, it could be Sutton.
Now tell me, so I had overlooked him a little bit. So did he not play last year?
Correct. He did not play last year.
Played as a sophomore.
Played as a sophomore, and then
Played
as a
growing
freshman.
up. I
Yep,
remember
yep,
him and his brother both played
yep.
growing up.
And to be honest, in athlete season, I was really hopeful for him. And then things happened, and fortunately we didn't have him. But I'm glad he's here now.
And he's a junior or senior?
He's a senior now.
Senior. And who? I mean, so
So we
obviously
have Luke, we could have Sutton, we could have Aiden Smith.
Aiden Smith I have in class. I like Aiden. Aiden's a tall dude, but probably 6'3".
That's what I'm saying. He's so quiet.
Yeah.
But he's so raw. It's man, he's got so much potential. And that's one of those things is he doesn't come off cocky or anything because he doesn't really talk that much.
Sophomore.
And he's a sophomore. But it's dude, you got potential. You almost need to I want him to kind of almost own it.
Yeah, no, I enjoy Aiden, and he's definitely he's in my gym class that's relatively athletic, and that's somewhat rare in a gym class. But he is definitely, no matter what we play, he's always one of the best few at whatever we're doing.
And that's where I'm hey, I want to pull this. Could he play JV every day, pitch, play whatever position? Yes. Is he getting better at the JV level? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? When he just plays every day. It's almost like one of those things where he might be a Beckham Harmon situation where he starts out maybe at the JV level and then halfway through we pull him up and then he's wow, he's helping us. He's going to stay.
Gotcha. Outfield. We already know Brody Boy's out there. I don't think we've really mentioned anyone else.
So Patrick Stolley, athlete.
Junior returner.
And it's the same thing with Patrick. Patrick is, again, probably not going to show up on the CBC Sports Online stat sheet, but he was always our pinch runner. He was always around us. He knows what we're going to do. You get a random, pinch hit where he just bunt. The thing with Patrick is he might be our leadoff hitter this year, and if he gets on base, he's going to steal second, he's going to steal third, and then hopefully we put it in play and he scores.
Yeah, Patrick's one of my favorite kids. He's smart. He's quiet, but he can open up if you get to know him. He does everything you ask him to do. He's always thinking. He definitely, you can tell he's a coach's son.
Yep.
He's been around. I always think when I see Patrick, I remember when he was born. I had just gotten to Bell Fountain, and then I remember those early days of him coming to the school and me in my classroom and hearing a ball bouncing at a time when you wouldn't hear it. You wouldn't hear it in the hallway, and it was Patrick at 4 and 5 years old bouncing a basketball. So glad to hear that he's in the mix. Is he center?
No, to be honest, I'll probably put Patrick probably in right, leave Brody in center. And then again, depending on who's pitching in the left field, would probably be Spencer or a Maddox Miller. I like outfielders that are very fast.
Maddox Miller's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore. I like guys that are fast because, again, a lot of our pitchers, we don't have anybody that's like Paul Skeens that's going to get 16 strikeouts
You don't have
a
a
game.
Paul Skeens?
No, unfortunately we don't.
We are screwed.
Yeah, so we don't have anybody that's going to strike out 16 batters, but we got guys that will throw strikes, let our opponents hit it, and that's why you need fast outfielders that then could go run it out.
Anybody we haven't mentioned that you say,
Caleb Overman could play outfield just because he's quick.
and we've probably
He's a
hit,
bulldog.
you said 15. We've probably hit at least 15 names, if not
Correct.
more.
Yeah.
And so then obviously the JV team gets kind of rated at times. which that's the nature of JV teams, maybe this year in particular.
And that's what kind of stinks. Then like you might have a kid that doesn't fit in any of those roles, that then is maybe stuck on a JV team and maybe isn't very good.
Not
So then they get
competitive, yeah.
So then they get frustrated, like, man, we ain't very.
Numbers go down even more.
And then they're like, man, I quit. Dude, we suck.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they have that bad news bears scene. That's where I'm hopeful though with Coach Smith and then Coach Chrysler. Those guys are very positive, upbeat guys. You know, they're there knowing that they're there for development, not for wins and losses.
And that's Nate Smith. I
Yep.
don't know Coach Chrysler's first name.
Jacob Chrysler.
And he is from out of the area, I
Yeah,
believe.
so he's from Hilliard, and then kind of crazy story, but a guy I played summer baseball with when I was in high school, Jacob, met him, and he played on some adult retro baseball league with him, and then for some reason Danny Lawrence mentioned me to him, and then Jacob was moving to the area. He's walking around Blue Jacket Park with his son, and he's like, hey, if you ever need anybody to help coach baseball, like I'm here. And you mentioned Danny, and then I reached out to Danny. He's like, yeah, he's a good dude. Then I researched him. He was an absolute dog at Mount Vernon Nazarene. So I'm like, that's a good guy to have around to
Yeah.
develop dudes.
Nice. And then up with you, your assistant coach is Mike Mossbarger, long time.
I would say for a person that should be in a Hall of Fame is Mike Bossberger. Like, I mean, there's nobody, like, again, he's always maybe taking second fiddle to things, like as an assistant. But if there's somebody that's the most reliable person, it's Mike. I mean, if there's any type of question that I've ever had, I always kind of revert to him because he knows, and he's been around. I mean, he's been around.
A lot of baseball.
It doesn't matter the sport.
I guess
Football,
mid-90s and baseball is when he starts coaching. Mike's a 1985, 86, 85 BHS grad. He was an all-league point guard for the Chiefs. Played some football early on, and I don't think he played after his freshman year. You're getting some support there from also the Hall of Fame. You got to fill out that paperwork. I know a little bit about that paperwork. You're going to get me off on a tangent here about this Hall of Fame. I've got strong opinions. I nominated Dalton Mossbarger. We got him through. That was a no-brainer. Nominated Jarrell Johnson. Did not get him in. I feel very strongly that Jarrell Johnson should be in our Hall of Fame. We're going to do a show on that someday where all the people that haven't gotten in I can talk about. A guy named Sid Otten. No, Sid was Mac Otten. I apologize. Mac Otten is not in our Hall of Fame. He played at Bowling Green and played in the NBA. Now, this is 1930s. At one point, he declined being in the Hall of Fame. He just said, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And so they just left it alone. He's since deceased.
yeah, you got to get him in.
To me, you put him in. They said it wasn't worth it. I disagree. But, yeah, you're going to get me all in a whole different thing. Jason Sims needs to be in our Hall of Fame. We got work to do on that Hall of
But
Fame.
like when it comes to Mike, again, he knows the game of baseball, number one. Number two, he relates so much with the kids. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes he's the bad cop, and sometimes he's the great cop, and I'm always the bad cop. So, you know, without Mike, these past 5 years for me probably would have been not as successul. Like,
Is he your only guy in the dugout with varsity?
yeah, to be honest, I trust Mike so much, and for me personally, I always like to have a feel of the dugout. So I trust Mike to be the third base coach.
And who coaches first?
So that would be probably Jacob Chrysler or Deontay St. Clair.
Okay, we didn't mention Deontay.
Yeah.
So Deontay St. Clair,
Yep.
Older brother of Tavian St. Clair, former Chieftain athlete, is also nephew of Blake St. Clair. We'll talk about him in a little bit. One of the legends of BHS baseball. Schedule-wise,
Yeah.
who we opening up with and when?
So we open up with Anna with a doubleheader on March 29th. But the thing with Anna, they're still playing basketball right now.
Okay.
So I think they're in the regional final. And so
They're already behind, even if they lose
correct.
now.
So then for me, I'm unsure because when you look at the basketball roster for them, a lot of those basketball guys play baseball. So I'm not
So they may
sure.
just say, hey,
They may say, hey, you know, we're not ready.
Would you
So-
try to pick somebody up if they did, or just
Yeah, their coach is really good guy. So
would
he
you try to
reach out.
replace them?
Yeah, I'd try to replace him on Saturday. But if not, then we would open up with Ben Logan. on that
So
Wednesday.
right to it, that next Wednesday, we're talking the first couple days in April.
You open up with a rivalry game.
Gotcha. And Ben Logan has been pretty good in baseball. Has that continued? I know there are a few years ago they're really good.
I would say Ben Logan is the epitome of a roller coaster. Like they are like when they have all their dudes. I mean, they are at the very top. They're hard to beat. But vice versa, they could lose a whole class of 12 to 13 kids, and then they're written like last year for them, they are rebuilding. Like this year, they have a great freshman class, and that's what kind of makes me nervous because
How quick do they come along?
how quick they come along.
Any new teams on the schedule? Like kind of, I know baseball jumps around a little more than other sports.
There's a new team on our schedule, and to be honest, they're so new. I gotta look at the schedule right now. But we play them later in the year because for me, I always try to schedule teams that are super competitive early on. So like April 12th, we'll play at Tip City. They're always a great program.
Yeah.
And then May 3rd, the new team on the schedule is Edgewood.
Okay, down in Trenton.
Correct.
South of Dayton, I believe.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a haul if you're driving down. Are you driving down there?
Oh yeah, we're going right down to. They have a turf field, so it's like a good experience for the boys,
Right.
just in case And it's later in the year, and Edgewood's normally a pretty good baseball school, so it's like that's one of those games where you treat it as a tournament game.
How much thought have you given to the fact that OHSA expanded to 7 divisions?
Well, to be honest, for Bellefontaine baseball, we lucked out by one boy.
So we're in
Because
4.
We're in 4 by one boy, and if we were in Division 3, I would say adamantly that like we would have gotten a host because
That's
in
where all
Division
the
3 you
hammers
have Wapak, Chaminade, Kent Ridge,
Kettering Oliver?
Kettering. The powerhouses of baseball are all in, like I would say Division 3 baseball is the hardest division out of all 7.
I looked at the Division 4 just quickly, and I don't know exactly how they don't show you very well how they're dividing them, but I can assume you see Urbana, Ben Logan, Indian Lake, Jonathan Alder, which that might be Central District,
Yep.
Northwestern, and Shawnee. So really,
But
the
also-
CDC is D4.
Correct, but also you get Bishop Fenwick,
Okay,
Oakwood.
saw Oakwood in there.
They'll be good. We played them 2 years ago at our place. And they had a kid throw 93, and we won 1-0 because they had a left-handed catcher.
Did you like the fact that they went to 7 divisions?
No?
Just think it's too much.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a money grab,
I just don't.
participation trophy, money grab. I really saw it in basketball. And I'm not disparaging anybody, but now we live in an era where a team wins one game and they're the sectional champions. And first of all, I don't know what the sectional is, and I've researched it. I don't know.
I'll one up you. Lancaster in basketball, Division 1.
Yeah,
They were in the district championship game. They get beat by Olentangy Orange by almost 50 points, and they get a district semifinal trophy.
did they win any tournament games?
Not one.
So they buyed into the district finals.
And that trophy's going to be in a trophy case.
Really what, and OHSA doesn't care what I think, but they should. What they should do is totally rename that stuff. Because the problem is, as someone that cares about the history, when you use the term sectional championship or district championship, we love those as sports fans because we can compare eras. And in baseball, if you win a district title, you can say, well, hey, Bellefontain's won 9 district titles. This is our 10th. And you want them to have some similarity. Now, we all know they change. But when they change as massively as they've changed now, we're no longer even playing the same game. So let's just come up with something different. Let's get rid of the regional, or let's get rid of the district, whatever you want to do, so that we can compare apples and apples.
Well, at the coaches convention, OHSA representative said that the Central District in Division 1 is going to pull teams from like Athens. So like in Division 1, Olentangy Orange may have to travel to Athens to play somebody in a baseball game for a district championship.
We do that, in football. It's now it's 7 divisions, so it's probably apples to apples. We as in Bellefontaine, we have been in the same region as Marietta for a few years now.
That's
and I've
ridiculous.
said, could you imagine if we had to go down to Marietta? I mean, talking almost 3 hours, probably 3 hours on a bus. Ben Logan came razor close to traveling to Cleveland Glenville
That is
2 years
stupid.
ago.
That's
and
stupid.
I was rooting for Ben. I just wanted to hear the story of Ben Logan getting on a bus going to Glenville. That would have been, we could have done a documentary on that. That would have been awesome. Teddy Ginn hosting the Raiders. But yeah, you can't even imagine that Ben Logan and Cleveland Glenville are in the same district. But that's,
And most people that want to talk about common sense, when it comes to that, like that doesn't make any sense.
The OHSAA doesn't have common sense. They look for money, and then they also look to keep everyone happy. So if they're making money and people can declare victory, then they feel good. Now, and I've said this on this show, I like more sports. So there's a part of me that's okay with it from a standpoint of if I get to watch more sports. It's like the bowl games in football. Everybody complains about them. But if I'm sitting on a Tuesday, December 27th, and at noon there's a football game, I'm going to watch it. I'm probably going to bet on it. I'm going to watch it, and I'm good with that. But, yeah, the problem is the history.
But even for me, when it comes to the playoffs, like I always think of crowds, right? Like it's just like the build up, like you know what I'm saying. Like you were playing for a championship, people from different towns would then like go to the game.
They were rough basketball this year.
And then you think about it, like even like this year's, like we hosted Chaminade here. Did Chaminade bring more than 300 people?
No. Now the only thing I'll push back there is Chaminade specifically being a private school. No matter what the era, was not going to travel well. But no, I think attendance now, you're getting into a whole different thing. I think attendance in sports is down because sports are down. People, generationally, we peaked probably 20 years ago, and now we're seeing sports just not be as important to everyone. They're still important to a lot of people, but they're less important than they were. People are on their phones. I mean, the kids, I can just tell you about Fountain High School, kids don't love sports as much as they did 20 years ago. Still, lots of them do, but less. Less kids come, the jock block is a good example. Now, that's not a be-all, end-all. That can be turned around. We see other schools that have done it. Certainly winning, nothing beats winning.
Correct.
If you're winning, you're going to get better crowds. But there's other things than just winning. There's some culture stuff there, too. But we talked about, we wanted to get into a little bit of the history about Fountain Baseball. I'm passionate about it. Baseball, of the three major sports, basketball, football, baseball would be my least that I know, just haven't had the access to it. But I've researched it, and I know you're coming from Indian Lake, which anybody that's probably listening already knows that you're an Indian Lake grad, 2006? 2011. I always forget that you're a lot younger than, I always feel like you're Wallace's age, I guess. Josh Wallace, 2006 grad.
If him and I would have faced each other, I would have hit him.
Well, we'll get into Josh Wallace here in a second, but just a few kind of things about Bell Fountain Baseball. 11 CBC titles. That's in a 50-year stretch or so. So, one out of every 5 the Chiefs have won. It's a pretty good record. 9 district titles. I don't know if you know this. The OHSAA website credits Bell Fountain for being 17th all-time in wins. 1,013, and that was of 2021. Now, they only list 1957 to 2021. So, baseball existed clear back. I found proof of baseball to 1929, but it is like a snippet of an article. I really struggle to find any details.
To be honest, the person that has more Bell Fountain baseball history than anybody is Mike. And it's not Mike, it's his dad.
Who's Mike?
Moss Parker.
Oh, okay.
So
well, he hasn't given any up.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I've been telling him, hey man, you gotta get off. I think he found like a jersey from like the 50s.
Well, what I really need is results and year by year, especially year by year records. So I've got all the year by year records to 1982. Prior to 1982, I can't find anything. 1970 and 1977, we were district runners up. That was under Don Skelly, a longtime coach. I believe Skelly was a coach from 67 to 1990. So really, Bell Fountain Baseball has not had a lot of coaches. You have Don Skelly from 67 until 1990. Then you have Tim Moran from 91 to 94. Mark Brunswick from 95 until 10-ish. Art Caudill. And then Bruns again for a minute, and then you. So, I mean, really, what you're talking 5 guys, maybe since 1967. Now, prior to that, I have no clue. And the best place for me, I feel like next, besides microfilm, which is at the library, it's pretty tedious, is the Historical Society. They do a really good job. I've never really reached out to them, but they'll post some stuff at times where they're pretty talented. We want to talk a little bit about the players, and we announced kind of that we're doing a project with you. We're going to do a media guide for Bell Fountain Baseball. When I started this deal a year ago, one of my passions was really media guides, written material, previews, like things to put my hands on. Guys that are in their 40s and 50s and maybe even 30s, we grew up with stuff in our hands, and it's digital programs and scan this thing with a QR code. That's not me. I don't want to do that. I want to have something to look at. I want to, something that sits in my bathroom and I can look at it. And so I approached you about doing a media guide, and I'm excited about it. We're going to do some history stuff, but a lot of it's going to be about this year's team.
And to be honest, with the media guide itself, what I wanted it to be is almost a discussion of, because I think Bell Fountain's had a lot of great baseball players, and one of the things that baseball is hard to judge is like eras, right? Like if you think of the 2004, 2006 team that's talked about a lot, right?
State semifinalists.
Correct. There's some guys that came before them that were better than some of those players on that team.
Which, that's not specific to Bell Fountain baseball. It's sports. Each team is going to have, you play different teams. And even in my own coaching career, I've coached different teams and say, well, this team won more games, but they played each other. And that's what's fun about sports. That's why you sit around a bar and you talk football, you talk baseball, you talk basketball. I mean, that's what I signed up for at 5 years old, without the bar part. That's my favorite thing to do. I do it all the time. My kids would tell you, my wife would tell you. I mean, that's what I do, is sit and talk about who's who. And that's why I struggle when we start calling things that I don't think are historically accurate. But so we've had the discussion about doing a cover, and we're not sure how we're going to do it, but one of the ideas we had was to put some of the best players of all time on the cover. So obviously, everyone's going to have an opinion. You mentioned that there's lots of debates. And the one thing you always have to know is some of the greatest players don't go on to play at the next level. Now, generally, the very best players, and we have one here at the Craft Emporium tonight, actually probably inarguably the greatest player in Bell Fountain history is Ryan Lane. He's actually sitting about 8 feet from us. We're going to talk to him here soon. Outside of him, now you're talking like an elite level, but you get down to those guys where you're like, they were really, really good. Some of those dudes don't play college baseball. They just, I think of a dude, and I'm just going to throw out a name, Bruce Holycross. Bruce, and I'm not saying Bruce didn't play college, but
listen to this. I've heard multiple people tell me that Bruce Holycross may be one of the better players ever.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. Bruce Holycross was a great athlete. And I don't even know what he did after high school. Whatever he did, I don't think he did it for very long. But Bruce was a player. And he's not going to show up on lists and stuff. But, those of us that were around know how good he was. But so what I did was I went through and found all the D1 players, which luckily there's a site called The Cube. And we're not going to talk about each one of these guys, but I'll just kind of give some of their credentials. You got, and it's not in any kind of order, Brett Hatcher. A lot of people know that name. He played 39 games at Ohio State. Now, if any of this stuff's wrong, it's because the internet's wrong. He was an 0-1 grad. I believe he's an 0-1 grad. He had a 3.48 ERA. Now, that's some Ohio State. I feel like that butts into Nick Swisher, because I was at Ohio State in those years, and Nick Swisher was in school when I was. So I would guess Brett Hatcher played with Nick Swisher. And I feel like Ohio State, I feel like in 02 or 03, we made the Super Regional, and that's like the Sweet 16 of baseball. Someone can fact check me on that. Sometimes these guys that are listening will tell me. Sig doesn't know anything about it. But the internet would know.
But he might be able to.
I feel like Brett, and his dad would know. He'd be able to answer that question. Next guy, Tyler Jones. Tyler Jones, was in school when I was we're getting a call from Bill Tipple. Tell Tips he's going to have to text in. Tyler Jones played 82 games at the University of Dayton. He's a 2016 grad. Really good pitcher. Are you familiar with Tyler Jones? That's a little before your time.
Well, his sister and my sister grew up and they were best friends. So I kind of was in the background watching him throw. And I would say he's probably one of the more underrated. When you're you're in a conversation like this,
right,
I don't think his name gets mentioned. But by God, without Tyler Jones, does Bell Fountain reach the regional semifinal the year they did?
No, and that's
what I'm saying. He put the team on his back.
Yeah, that's an Art Caudill baseball team. Art had some really, really good teams. I mean, he had 3 teams that are 3 district championships. That sound right?
Yeah.
At least. And that's one of them. Is that 15 maybe? 2015, 2016. Yeah, Tyler Jones. I agree. A really, really good kid. Another guy, Dalton Mossbarger, who obviously he's usually in here. He's not here tonight, but went to Akron and did a lot of good things in
program got
Akron.
dissolved, which sucked.
Yeah,
And
program
then,
gets canceled.
I still remember this because Dalton played in the same time period as me, and I still remember when he was playing with the Dayton Docks, and I was playing with the Grand Lake Mariners, and he just gets the news out of the blue. Yep, our program's done. I couldn't imagine that.
You probably find out through the media. So the good news for Dalton is he lands on his feet. He transfers to Ohio State, and he's a part of a Big Ten title team. Dalton has to be one of the more decorated college players. He pitched 43 games, and he will tell you, and he absolutely would tell you, he's one of the few that I'm aware of that I don't know what you call in baseball, played both ways.
Correct.
He's pitching
Two-way.
Two-way guy, batted in 147 other games, had a 2.38 career ERA, pitched in Big Ten title games, hit a home run in the was that in Louisville, I believe, in the college. Well, they don't call it the College World Series. Well, he will correct me. I promise. I'll tell you the guy. And this next guy is a dude that I had totally forgotten about. Played 173 games at Ohio University. Jeff Stockton might be interested to hear this. Dusty Hammond played 173 games at OU, batted 300. As a 2003 guy. I had no idea. That dude started 4 years. That's Steve Hammond's son. You know Steve?
Yeah.
Steve is a longtime umpire. And Steve is a BHS grad. Steve was on some baseball teams in the 70s. Married to Deb Hammond, who a lot of us worked with at the high school.
So, when did Dusty graduate?
Dusty's an 03 grad. And that I knew him, I knew of him, and I knew he was a good athlete. I didn't realize he was that good. Another guy, Bart Patterson. Now, Bart only ended up spending 1 year at Eastern Michigan, but he played 15 games as a freshman. And I think it was as a true freshman at Eastern.
That's impressive.
He's an 02 grad. I don't know the story, and I know Bart probably a little better than I know a lot of these other guys. I don't know what the story is on why Bart, I'm guessing injury, just because it feels like that's how they all end.
Depending on what position he played, he could definitely be an arm.
I think Bart was a pitcher, right?
Yeah, if he was a pitcher, then definitely.
I believe he was a pitcher. That I might be wrong though, because he played 15 games. Unless he was a reliever, that would be a lot. I'm sure he pitched at Bell Fountain, obviously. Another guy, Mark Scheck. Mark Scheck played 51 games at Valpo. He was teammates with Josh Wallace, who we're going to talk about in a minute, but you're good buddies with, and I work with. He's part of that class that goes to Valpo, correct?
Correct.
And now they all didn't go. They all didn't get there. We don't have to talk about the guys that didn't get there, but Scheck did get there. I know Mark's dad, Randy, has been a bus driver for the high school.
He's a bus driver. It's almost like a rally cry. It's almost like I think he might be undefeated as our bus driver.
Randy's a big St. Louis Cardinals fan. He always has a Cardinals shirt on when I see him. Another guy, Chris Steffen, played 43 games at Wright State, had a 375 average in 05 grad. I feel like his dad is a guy named Heiner Steffen. I don't know him, but I always knew of him. He was, I believe, really good friends with Greg Peitzmeyer. That was kind of how his name would get brought up and things. Next guy was, you could make the argument, maybe the best player in high school, Chris Walden. He's the only guy I'm aware of that was named national. I mean, that Gatorade Player of the Year, right?
Now the thing is with
Is that a state thing or is it a national thing?
So like Chris Walden technically could be the equivalency when it comes to like rankings and stuff like that.
Like Tavian.
As Tavian.
Right.
I mean, like if you put baseball and football kind of on the same stage, Walden was the baseball of Tavian with football.
So he gets a scholarship to go to Kentucky.
Correct.
And how, I know the SEC.
I don't know what happened with that stuff, but I would tell you his ability on the baseball field was unreal. I saw it in person, and the stuff he had was like as similar to Tavian with throwing a football.
Just different.
He was different.
He had been the starting quarterback for the Chiefs, I believe, certainly as a sophomore and junior. Didn't play as a senior. I don't think he started as a freshman, but definitely one of the better athletes. He's recently been put into the Hall of Fame. He ended up playing, I didn't realize this, he played 3 games at Wright State a couple years later.
And he's a hell of a bowler.
He is definitely a hell of a bowler. I see his name on the Southwest Bowl site. Next guy, Josh Wallace. We mentioned Josh. I know he's one of your best, closest friends. He's coached with you. Josh ended up playing, and Josh is humble. I didn't realize he was good as he was. 131 games at Valpo, batted .281, 18 home runs, 88 RBIs. 18 home runs in college, that's certainly D1, that'd be the most.
Now you ready for this? The only thing I'll give Josh any type of credit for is right now, if we were to go to Blue Jacket Park and turn the lights on, and I threw BP to him, and I give him 12 pitches, he's gonna get 5 out. I don't know how many people, even washed up, guys that.
How did he do in your little celebrity game last year?
He struggled. Live
Struggled,
pitching, but
yeah.
there's a difference between batting practice
Okay.
and live pitching. Like, I don't know if I took Ryan out right now, I don't know how many hits he hits
Well,
out.
we're going to ask him here in a minute.
I would love to see that home run derby.
The next guy, and then now this guy stakes his claim, because I like to say who's the best college player. This next guy, a guy people overlook, Brad Winter, 204 games at Kent State. That means he's a 4-year starter, a 4-year player. Batted .263, 16 home runs, 119 RBIs. That's a bunch of college RBIs. So he was raking for Kent State University. His younger
Kent State's great program.
were they good? Okay.
Great program.
Well, and that his brother Brandon, younger brother, who I coached in football, played 50 games at the University of Akron, same place as Dalton Mossbarger, 2010 grad. Didn't have a ton of stats, but you don't fall into 50 games. And then the last one, it's weird. Blake St. Clair does not exist on that site, and I just think it's one of those oversights. I know. I found newspaper articles of Blake St. Clair. He was at Indiana from 1998 to 2001. He was absolutely a starter because there's just multiple box scores. I don't know his numbers. His name gets brought up a lot. Like when you ask people who the best players are, they're quick to say him.
Well, a little backstory. When Tavian was a freshman, he went on a visit to Indiana for baseball, and Indiana's coach knew Blake. So they know of him. So
Now,
any
we have-
university's coaches to know him.
yeah,
is like,
no, absolutely. We have 4 players that have been drafted. Now, only one of them we've mentioned so far, and baseball is unique, and a lot of people know this, but if they don't, you have the opportunity to get drafted out of high school, which is, it's certainly you don't in basketball, you don't in football. Chris Walden was drafted. I didn't really totally realize that. He was drafted in the 37th round of the Major League draft. He was drafted by the Seattle Mariners. Obviously, at some point, he decides, I'm not,
the money.
I'm going to pass that up. I'm going to go to Kentucky, and I'm going to do that. Tyler Melling, outside of Ryan Lane, who we're getting ready to talk to, he's pulling up a chair right now. Tyler Melling is a 39th round pick. Now, 39 rounds doesn't exist anymore, does it? Ryan, I'll just go ahead and say hello.
How you doing?
Ryan, good to see you.
Can we just hop into the trivia question? Because I want to get the people going here.
What's the trivia question?
If I gave you 12 pitches,
Oh,
we go out to Blue Jacket Park.
you're putting him on
we
the
go out to
spot.
Blue Jacket Park, 12 pitches. I'm going to throw them right down the middle
Yeah.
at 50-ish miles an hour. How many do you think you could hit out?
Right now?
Jeez. He's been at the Craft Emporium for about 2
Well,
hours.
yeah, okay.
And that's got a factor. There's got to be a
I
curve
mean-
here.
I got a competitor that probably wouldn't compete.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I think Ryan is probably just going to point to some of these
Yeah, that's
stats
what I'm
and say
saying.
he doesn't have to compete in
Well, he
it.
has to.
I'm going to get to Ryan. Tyler Melling, 39th pick, 39th round. What is the draft now? Do either one of you guys know? 35. They cut
And
it
then
off.
they do the 5, let's say you're a bad baseball organization, and you get you can trade you get extra pick if you're bad.
Tyler ends up not signing. He goes to college, and then he ends up being drafted. Well, I don't know exactly. Actually, I apologize. He was not drafted out of high school.
But he got
went to
drafted.
college out of Miami University and then got drafted. So how does that work? Your junior year, it opens up.
Junior year, and then you can get drafted again your senior year.
So you go to college. You're off limits for 3 years. Then you can be drafted. Well, he was drafted by the Cardinals. He spent 5 years and made it all the way to Double-A. He played for Springfield. That is an affiliate of the Cardinals. He was a Cardinal the entire time. This is not that long ago. This was 2015. Pat Schmidt, which Ryan would be familiar with Pat Schmidt. I don't think your careers overlapped. He comes kind of after you. Pat was drafted in the 22nd round, so outside of Ryan, he's the highest pick. He was drafted by the Braves, spent 3 years all in rookie ball with the Braves, and then obviously has moved on to the professional realm. Ryan, now that we've got you over here, I'll let you talk, but you were drafted in the 8th round by the Minnesota Twins. I remember I was 13 years old, My distinct memories are tracking Ryan Lane. You know what that is, right? The Bell Fountain Examiner tracking Ryan Lane.
Remember it well. Yeah.
Tell me, so let's back up. I didn't expect to talk to you tonight, so I'm not as prepped for it, but your dad, Denny Lane, longtime Bell Fountain educator.
Sure.
You grew up obviously around sports. 3-sport athlete at one point.
Yeah. Played all three. Played football, basketball, baseball. Yep.
You were a heck of a basketball player. You were on some really good Will Collins basketball teams.
Yep.
You're a 93 grad, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're playing in those district
Finals
a few times.
4 times.
All 4 years.
All 4.
How many times did you win in those 4?
0.
Oh, you guys were. That was the Forest Park. You lost to them
Park.
twice, right?
Twice. Yep. I'm trying to remember Cincinnati. Anderson, I think, was 1 year. But yeah, we made it to the district finals all 4 years.
How many of those years are you varsity?
All 4.
Oh, you're a freshman varsity player.
Yeah.
And that's, and some of the guys sitting here tonight, they really, that's the era that, and it's men of a certain age, they really wax poetic about 1984 to about 1995. And if you ask these guys, that's the best athletics Bell Fountain's ever had. And certainly basketball, that's some of the best players we've ever seen.
Yeah, there were some, obviously, there were some great teams in the early in the 70s that, I think there was a team that made it to the state in
73 and 76 both made it to the Final Four.
Right. But after that, I don't remember the 4 years that I was in high school, but something record was, I don't know. It was pretty good. You make it to I know my senior year we were 22-0 and
ranked first in the state.
AP state ranked.
Only time in school history.
That kind of stuff. So we had some pretty good athletes and good basketball players for sure.
And then football, you played until your senior year, and then you just kicked?
Right. So how that went down was I played my freshman and sophomore years. Played varsity. I kicked and receiver and played safety and did kick returns and different stuff. And then my junior year is when baseball was starting to become kind of the obvious sport that I was going to have the best opportunity to move on with. So it was after my junior years when I didn't play, and then my senior year, I had already signed in the fall with Ohio State to go to play baseball. So at that point, I was convinced to just kick my senior year. So that's what I did.
How often were you guys kicking back then? Extra points, obviously.
Well, extra points and kickoffs.
Okay, you had the
punt,
kickoffs.
and punt.
Okay. Oh, you're the punter too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a question.
Now, before you say, how often is Pites? You were obviously one of the absolute best athletes our school's ever seen. How many times in a tight game does he not look at you and say, "Dude, we need you out there"?
Do it. I don't know. I'm sure there were some temptations there, and I'm sure knowing Pikes that I think he thought, well, I'll just say, hey, I'll just have you punt or kick or whatever, thinking that I wouldn't be able to resist. But we did, and so I never played an offensive snap. That year, but I, typically the kicker or the kickoff, when you kick off, you want your kicker to be like the safety valve, as far as
you were the gunner.
But I was the gunner.
Yeah. Kick and chase.
Kick and chase, go down there and make the tackle and get a little action.
Now the question I have for you, again, the draft process, scouting process, of course, has changed from when you were drafted.
Well, let's get to that.
To now, for me, when I was in college, I had a scout after a game hand me a questionnaire and go, "Hey, fill this out with your family, send this back to us." And for you, was there any questionnaires?
Well, let's get to the draft. I want to go back a little bit. So I'm curious. You start playing baseball as soon as you can, 5 years old?
Three.
You're 3 years old.
Right.
You're playing t-ball basically in diapers.
Yeah.
And your dad, I don't know your family. Do you have siblings?
I have two sisters.
Two sisters, so you're the
Yeah.
only boy.
Yeah.
So your dad pretty quickly identifies, we're going to get Ryan in sports.
Yeah.
Your dad was a good athlete too,
He
right?
was, yeah. He actually he played in the Royals, Kansas City Royals minor league system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
pitcher though.
I'm glad you told me that. I'm gonna
Heck
look
of a
that up.
golfer,
I
too.
didn't. Well, I knew he was a good golfer. I didn't realize that. I'm gonna look that up.
So real quick history. So there was a thing that the Royals did. It was called the Kansas City Royals Baseball Academy, and it's actually a thing in the Hall of Fame because it was kind of a first time experimental type situation. What they did was they would find athletes. Their theory was we could take a great athlete and we could teach him baseball skills, but you can't take a guy and teach him athletic skills.
Right, no.
Right?
Born.
It doesn't have. So that was kind of the idea. And so they just went out and they found, athletes out there that were doing things and said, you know what, you may not be a baseball player, but we're going to teach you how to be a baseball player.
Where'd your dad grow up?
In West Mansfield.
Okay.
And he was always a baseball player and a pitcher, but he was kind of a skinny, long arm guy, and they put him on a special diet and different things, things that we see every day now. But back in 1973 or whatever it was, it was kind of a state of the art idea, and so that's what they did, and so they beefed him up and added some weight to him, and said, we're gonna make you a pitcher.
So you start playing, like millions of American boys. You're playing t-ball. You're coming through. At what age do you remember feeling like, okay, hey, this is maybe a little different for me than? Were you immediately just head and shoulders? Where do you know, hey, I might have a future?
Yeah. Well, honestly, for me, I was matured early, and I think athletics was always a thing that was pretty obvious. I know the story my dad likes to tell is when I was little. He thought about making me like a switch hitter or left-handed hitter or something, but he said I just seemed to be so right-handed, naturally, that he thought it would be awkward, to try to make me do something that I just seemed naturally able to do. But no, it was, for me, honestly, it was just kind of always a very natural thing that just was there, that I enjoyed doing, and then of course, Dad being a teacher and a coach, it was a great. We lived on Michigan Street, here in Bell Fountain, 200 yards from the high school. Having access to the school and
What is the climate of baseball in those days? So we're talking the 80s, basically, early to mid 80s. How much outside of, obviously we had rec ball here, was there, what age do you start having opportunities where you can go do something else?
Yeah, it was very different at that, when I was at that point in time. I just played in, a local rec league here, played in we had what was called Peanut League.
Hold on. So you played in the Peanut League? And
Yeah.
You got drafted in the 8th round?
Yeah.
That's not possible anymore.
Yeah, I played in Peanut League. Dad was the coach there for the Rutan Blue team, and that's where I started when I was 3. And then it went to Farm League and Little League and Pony League, and then I played Acme. And I did play on the Acme team about a year early. I think I was like 8th grade. I think.
So all you're doing right now is playing up a little
Just
bit.
playing up a little. At that point, playing some tournaments when I was like in Little League and stuff. But yeah, Acme, and then it was about age 14, 15, that age when the first travel league I really played on was with WBLY out of Springfield, and that was a Connie Mack team out of Springfield. And then that was like sophomore, junior year. Going into my senior year, then I played for Cincinnati Midland.
I feel like I know that term.
Midland
That's
is
the team.
So I would say baseball perspective, Midland is like the premier baseball travel organization in Ohio.
Did your dad, I mean, did he have to almost, I've watched Tavian St. Clair and how Marcus has handled him and his mom Patricia. There's no playbook for that. I think Marcus has said that. As your dad, you get to high school, he starts to realize, hey, my son, he has a potential to be a lot bigger and better than what we've had typically at Bell Fountain. Does he reach out to some of those type places?
No, it wasn't like that. So what happened was I was playing for WBLY out of Springfield, and we were a Connie Mack organization, and so we played in tournaments, and we played against Cincinnati Midland. And it was playing against them that I was basically scouted by them.
They found you.
They found me, and they said, hey, Steve Larkin was the shortstop at the time. Barry's brother was the shortstop that year. He was, moving on, and they said, "Hey, we need a shortstop for next year. Would you consider, coming to play for us?" And so we were like, "Yeah, So we, they got together, and that was basically it. And so. So no, they kind of found me then, but it was because of the exposure of playing against them that they saw me, and I got the opportunity together.
You committed to Ohio State, which I didn't realize that. How hard did they when did they come into the picture?
So I signed early as a junior.
Okay.
And I was technically, actually, like that year, at least according to them, I was one of their top recruits. Because I got a really good offer, it was almost a full ride, and so I signed the early, I don't know what it is. It was the fall. I think is it early signing?
Early sign would be your fall of junior year.
Fall of my junior year. So I had signed. So then going into my senior year, that was all done, which was great because then I didn't have to worry about college at all, and it was just go and play and then see what happened with in the professional ranks.
How much are you thinking? As you get into your senior year, how much are you thinking about the draft?
A lot. I mean, it's obviously that was always the goal.
Is anybody giving you feedback?
That's what I'm saying. Like you had to have known, like at Blue Jacket Park, there had to been, you got to know, like, all right, that dude's definitely a scout.
Yeah. No, so going into your senior year, like after you sign, and especially when you go and you play the whole summer with Midland, and you're traveling around, and you're the best team in the nation,
and vice versa. How many scouts do you think were at each of those summer games? Like you get to estimate.
Oh.
And then vice versa.
50. There'd be 50 at some of them.
Now, did you have cross-checkers then come and like interview you and say?
They didn't really interview. It wasn't like that. It was more like, because that team, honestly, was loaded with
MLB quality.
MLB quality talent
on that team.
Yeah. So Mike Bell.
Yeah.
He was the third. He was our third baseman, and he ended up he had signed. He was going to go to Ole Miss. He was, I think, what did he end up being? I can't remember. He was an earlier draft, third round, second round, somewhere in that range. I can't remember. And he ended up getting. He had a little bit of big league time, and then
that's what I'm saying. Like it's crazy to think like. My own experiences, and same with you, like I played with Matt Whistler in summer, and it was crazy because it was almost like a kind of thing where like you almost felt like you were less than because Matt Whistler would pitch, right? And there'd be 32 MLB scouts, and they'd be there every pitch, right? And I would think because I'd throw after them, and then All 32 scouts? Yep, they're gone.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I would assume playing with Midland, obviously all those other really good players, that had to help. Like, no one at Bell Fountain could relate to what you were
No,
doing. Your dad
no.
couldn't get any information from other dads, and now all of a sudden you got people,
Yeah.
probably your coaches.
Right. No, that was a big stepping stone. I mean, for me, was like to get that experience and opportunity because you're traveling and you're playing against the best, like the top level talent in the country. They have the reputation of. I think that year, honestly, our record, like that summer, I think we were 74-4
Man, it's a lot of games.
or something. It was a lot
You're playing.
every day.
Yeah.
Against some of the best amateur talent.
And that's what I'm
in the
saying.
country.
Midland, if you said Midland 8 years ago, and then if some kid ever came to me and said, "Hey, coach, I'm playing for Midland," I'd say, "Thank God you're on our team."
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's a little different, but Midland was, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. But anyways, so the exposure. I mean, I can tell you every starter on that team had a D1 scholarship. Like literally every starter, and then there were like 4 or 5 of them that got drafted.
So as you get close to the draft, 8th round, is that day one? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your expectations as that day happens? Like,
It's, it's kind of it's a very interesting situation because you are, at that time, you talk to lots of teams. Like you do like I had tryouts with the Indians, and I really thought I was going to be drafted by the Colorado Rockies. In '93, they were an expansion team. I had talked to their scout a lot. He was, I just had seen him a lot, and he was very interested, and it really felt like that was going to happen. And he told me anywhere between like somewhere between like in the first 10 rounds, is where you're going to fall. And I had gone right before the draft, Indians had me up and I did a private workout, which is really cool, in Municipal Stadium. It was the last year that it was there. And it was just me and some scouts. And I was there, and they hit me ground balls, and I hit some, I took batting practice and stuff before a big league game. And so, I got to see, after that, it was against they were playing the Rangers, so I got to see like Jose Canseco and Juan Gonzalez and some of those guys at the time.
the Indians are about to get good.
And the Indians were Albert Bell, Joey Bell, I think it was there. And so these guys were beasts. And I just remember, if I hit one really well, like in batting practice, of course you're up there on the lake and air coming off the lake and stuff. I could like hit it with a wooden bat, then 18 years old, I'm hitting it to the warning track or off the wall, whatever. And these guys were like flicking it with the wrist, into the lake.
Like a toothpick.
And I just remember just realizing just how much bigger and stronger, and these are grown men that were, that was probably one of the first realizations of how much difference there was between.
How are you monitoring the draft? Because this is pre-internet.
I really wasn't at all.
So you're just waiting
I'm
for a
just
phone call?
I'm just like hanging out.
You're not getting a pick-by-pick update.
No, I had no idea. And then the phone call comes, and
You're tied to the house, though?
yeah, and the Twins
The
are
landline?
like, hey, this is the Twins. We picked you in the 8th round. Congratulations, blah blah blah. And
Now, you keeping them phone lines open? This is old days where you're
yeah,
like,
there's
hey,
no
we
right.
can't talk right now.
There's
Now, did they send you then to rookie ball right then and there?
Well, yeah, so that was in June, 3rd or something like that. By July, the first week of July, I'm in rookie ball down in Fort Myers. And so, actually, Coach Brown, and I were going to be roommates at Ohio State, and yeah, he's got a fun story he can tell you about that. But who we ended up with and how that changed. But yeah, we were going to
Up
be
in
roommates.
Arizona.
We were going to be roommates, and at Ohio State. And
Was it immediate when you get drafted in the 8th round? Is it like done deal, I'm gone?
no, so I had about a month. Like I said, it was like first week of June,
No,
and
I
I
mean
had.
No, like you're signing.
Oh,
Like
no. I mean, so then it's like, okay, so then your scout comes, and then they start, trying to.
Your signing
You're
bonus.
starting negotiating your contract to see if you're going to sign. And of course, they come in and lowball you and all that kind of stuff. And so, and I didn't have an agent. It was just me and my dad, my family, and we kind of talked beforehand. It was like, hey, what is it going to take? That kind of thing. Because I had a pretty good situation going to Ohio State, and pretty much a full ride. So it was like, what's it gonna take to persuade you and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. It's as an 18-year-old kid, and
Was your number different than your dad's, or was it like
I think we kind of came to an agreement. It was like you kind of take. Basically, what we did was we just kind of took like what a 4-year education cost at that time, and whatever, and which is a lot less than what it is today. And it's interesting to see today where the 8th round pick gets versus what I got.
Oh, yeah.
Christ.
You would be sitting here with us.
No, so, but anyways, yeah, it's and that was one of the tough. Honestly, it was a tough. Because that's right. I mean, that was like right in the bargain area where it's like if I was like a 3rd round pick or something, it's like okay, no, not much to think about. But it was right there where
It's at the cutoff.
right at the cutoff, and I just decided that that was always the dream, and at that point, what, this is what we're gonna do. And I'm going to focus my time, energy, and passion into this is what I'm going to do. And if it doesn't work out, I can go to school later.
And I don't want to press fast forward through a 7-year, 8-year career.
Yeah.
But if we don't press fast forward, we're going to be here until midnight.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Only question I have with the minors. So how long were you with single A, double A, triple A? How quick was the jump?
It was really each year. The only time that I moved moved a level within the year was from our high A to double A.
Gotcha.
And that was towards the end of the year. So I started off in rookie league in Fort
Where's that
Myers.
at? Fort Myers,
In Fort
Florida?
Myers. And then from there, actually we went to instructional league in the fall, and then you go back the next year in spring training, and then there's a high rookie, which was in Elizabethton, Tennessee, which I think Mellon played in that
Tyler Mellon?
I think Tyler played in that league with St. Louis, in Tennessee. I think he was in Johnson, Tennessee. I was in Elizabethton. And then we went to Fort Wayne, which is kind of like
That's nice.
10 cups.
Yeah.
10 cups.
which is kind of like the Dayton Dragons, and
That had to make your
that was
family's life
awesome.
a lot
Yeah,
easier.
that was great because at that point now you're playing night games. You got a stadium.
All
And,
fountain people were coming at times.
yeah, you're close enough that family and friends could come watch you play. So that was a lot of fun. And then the next year was back in Fort Myers, and that's in high A. And that was so I was there until about July, and then I got moved up to Double A to finish the season that year. And then that was when I got put in after that year is when in '96 I think it was. That's when I got put on the 40-man roster.
And so life changes quite a bit for you at that point.
You get MLB minimum then, right?
Well, you at least get to go to spring. You get to go to big league camp.
Is that your first time
That's
then?
the first time. Yeah.
Are you treated different?
Oh yes.
Hell yeah, these
That's-
guys.
That's when the fun stories start. You go and you got the clubby guys are greeting you and they're taking your bag and Hey, we'll take care of everything. And so I go, and I'm at that point, one of my 21 or 22 years old. And, I get in the locker room, and I went a little bit early, spring training, down in Fort Myers, and I do a workout on my own just because I wanted to get off the plane. I want to go do something. And so there's really nobody there, and I'm just kind of doing whatever, hitting off a tee and doing some stuff, running. But then I go to my locker, and I find my locker, and to the left is Terry Steinbach,
Catcher.
right? Catcher, all-star catcher that the Twins had just signed as a free agent from the A's.
Yeah.
And to my right was
Kirby Puckett.
No,
I'm
it wasn't
hoping you're
Kirby
gonna say
Puckett.
Kirby
It
Puckett.
was Knobloch,
Chuck Knobloch.
right? So Chuck Knobloch is then to my right. So it's Terry Steinbach, me, Chuck Knobloch. That was my locker situation. And they gave me number 1, right? So
Kind of a message.
as a roster player. So I'm like, what the heck? It was kind of embarrassing a little bit because I got all kinds of grief from it.
Tom Kelly, the manager at this
Tom
point.
Kelly is still the manager. Yep.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's kind of the end of. That's getting late in Kirby Puckett's career. Is that fair?
Well, so Kirby. So here's the deal. That was the year that Kirby got diagnosed with glaucoma. So let me go back to that day that I get off the plane and work out, get in the shower, and it's one of those big locker room, square locker room showers where
Like
there's
the movie from Major League.
where there's shower heads on the wall, and I'm in there by myself. I thought, showering, cleaning up, whatever. I hear water turn. I turn around with soap in my eyes, and it's Kirby Puckett. And so,
Hey, Kirby, how's it going?
yeah, he says, hey, is this your first camp? And I said, yeah. He said, what's your name? I tell him. So then he